Hello again guys, welcome to Otto's Garage. So this is the diff carrier bush basically. So this goes between the diff itself and the carrier, which we've bolted onto the car. So you can see the corresponding 3 holes in there. So it fits basically underneath that way, it goes up through there. And what we have to do now is take out the old rubber, factory rubber bush, press those out, and then I'm going to get a poly bush set to go in there to replace them. Now what I've done is I've just put this one in the vise. I've just run the hacksaw down here basically. So what that means is now that the top of it, you cut the top off the inner bush there, that's factory pressed onto the end of that. So I've just cut that off. Now I've got that free, I can get that offered up in the press, and then we can basically press the middle out of it, all being well. Let's have a look at that. So we've got the press set up there. Just put that flat plate on there just to equalise it so it doesn't offset, but then I've just got the end of a piece. I think it might be a bit of scaffold tube or something in there. Just pressing on that, so we'll just see how that goes. Okay, so that might be a bit on the big side. I'm just going to pull that off and we'll just go again with a slightly smaller diameter thrust. Yeah, that's doing the job now. You can see it's just going through, whereas before it was trying to distort the plate, which wasn't good obviously. Well, these things happen. Right, so what's happened there is basically the press has been pushing the inner bush on the rubber, but the outer rubber, which is sealed onto the metal factory plate, basically it's just been gripping, and all the movement's been accommodating the rubber to a point where it then just released all that energy and sprung out. And you can see as it's done that, it has kind of bent that plate as well, so I'm going to have to straighten that up. What I do need to do though is probably I think I might try and burn that a bit first before or cut some of it away before we repress it, because obviously there's quite a lip on there where it's sitting onto the metal, and the rubbers are obviously in very good condition because it's not wanting to come out as easily as I thought it would. Okay, I've cut the other end of it off as well, so you can just see where the hacksaw's just passed down the rubber there. And we're going again. This time we've got a little bit more movement, I think, so fingers crossed. You can see it tearing away from the metal down that side. And bingo, out she goes. Okay, so the bush is out. I've just taken the studs out of it as well, and we've just flattened that back off again. So it's all nice and straight. All I need to do now is tidy that up, give it a bit of a coat of paint, and then I'll wait for the poly bush to go into it. So I'll do the other one and then we'll be ready to rock. So diff housing is going to be located with Powerflex bushes. So basically you get a pair of those and they go onto the original factory metal retainers. So the old rubber ones we pressed out. The Powerflex goes one in the top, one underneath it, like that, and then basically that gets bolted up onto the Walker's diff carrier, and then the diff, which we're just cleaning up outside, that then gets bolted onto those. I think that it is going to be easier, to be fair, to get all of the diff and everything fixed into the carrier, because looking at some of those bolts that reach up there, that's going to be quite tricky to get to those under the car. So I might just get all that in the diff carrier and then lift the whole thing up and bolt the diff carrier back onto the car afterwards. Might be the easier option while we can get in there. Okay, so first off, I'd just love to say thanks for all the subscribers out there. It's just gone a bit nuts, especially now we've started putting some shiny bits on the car. But yeah, great to see so many followers and getting some nice comments. So thanks for that, and please share it around as well, because it'd be great if we can get a nice little community and hopefully help some other people out with their projects. In other news, guys. Right, front suspension arms. There's three ways you can do it actually. This is a standard lower arm, which has been shot blasted. Just needs a bit of tidying up before we can paint it. I could just get that painted, pop it back on the car, bingo, job's a good one. This is where the lower ball joint fits. However, there is a little bit of an issue with these, because they are prone to cracking along here when they get some serious abuse, basically. These are in, as pretty much everything else on this Prisma, in very good condition. There's no distortion, there's no sign of any cracking anywhere on them. But that's not to say that that might happen in the future. So the first way you can do it is you just put the standard arm on. Second way, you get a fancy Group A rose jointed arm, which would be similar to the kind of thing that I've made on the back of the car with the rose joints on it. I don't want to go completely down that route just as yet. So there is a third way, and the third way is basically you fit a reinforcing plate. So what you have is, on the underside of the Lancia arm, you have the laser profiled plate, and that basically gets welded on to the underside of the arm, and you've got to make sure obviously that those front holes there all align perfectly. So that's the place where we need to start welding it really. I've just marked down here in blue, I just need to take a little notch out of there so it clears this section of the arm, and then it should bend over with the heat. We should be able to bend it over and stitch weld it along as we go. But before I do that, I'm not going to be able to get inside that afterwards, because obviously the plate will be in the way and I do want to stop some of that rust. So what we are going to have to do first is give her a clean up and give her a coat of paint under there. I do appreciate that when we weld it, some of that's going to burn off, but at least it's better than nothing, and I can always get in there and squirt a little bit of wax oil or something afterwards when we're finished. So the next job probably is to get those just tidied up, painted, and then we can just take that little notch out the side there and get those plates tacked on. So that's a nice little modification there, and it should strengthen those arms up nicely. Okay, so that's those tidied up. Basically what I've done is I've gone over it with the wire wheel in the grinder, and that's just fantastic for getting into all the little nooks and crannies. But then I did notice that we did have some quite nasty pitting on the top where the sandblaster had just taken out that embedded rust on it. So I've just gone over it with a flat wheel on the little grinder as well, just to take those off. So yeah, they look pretty good now. I've just got to give them a coat of paint, and then when they've dried I'll come back to those and we'll fit the plates onto the bottom of those. We'll weld those on. Okay, these are the arms. So I've put some zinc 182 on the inside. It's not sprayed on the outside or painted at all, because I can do that after. But once we get the plate, which again's got the zinc paint on it as well, once that plate is on the underside, we're not going to get inside it to paint it. So hopefully some of that paint will stay in there when we weld it. And what I need to do first is get a clamp, bolt those together so that they align perfectly, and then we'll have to start welding from that end and work our way back, because at the moment obviously it's flat and we need to follow that curve and weld it down as we go. Right, that's the plate welded on. What I've done is I've seam welded it right the way round to the end there, and then the same obviously on this other side as well. I'm not going to touch it because it's still a bit on the hot side. But yeah, that's basically got the plate in the right place. The only thing I did find is that when I first bolted these on, to get them all to line up perfectly. At the far end, the plate was just slightly overhanging on this side, so I've had to lose these two holes, the nuts in these two holes, and then basically what I'll have to do is just get the drill through there and square them back off flush again afterwards. But it's probably something to do with how the Lancia arm is made compared to the laser CNC pattern of the laser cut plate. So there's a slight difference between the two there. And there's a look from the top side. So again, we've got that same seam weld going right the way around there. So all I need to do now basically is give it a bit of a buff up, and then she'll be ready for some more paint on the top of that. Right, so where the plate has been welded on the bottom of the suspension arm, you can see there how the two holes don't quite align. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a die grinder. It's got a tungsten carbide end in it, and we'll get in there and we'll just grind away the plate. I'm going to leave the original Lancia steel because obviously that's set out for the correct geometry for the suspension. So we'll grind away the new plate and get it to match up with the original hole. So that die grinder is a great tool. It takes it out in no time at all, and you can see the original plate which is offset to the one that I welded underneath. So looking at it from the correct side, basically it's now pulled that hole level to the original Lancia position. That's good. What I would say with those is that you can get these die grinders with stones in them, and the trouble with the stones is that you'll probably end up wearing the stone out well before the actual material that you're grinding off. So get yourself a set of tungsten carbide grinding bits for it, and it comes out in no problem at all. But it's a great little tool. It's not very noisy, but it's brilliant, and it certainly saves a lot of time. Okay, so here they are. I've just given them a coat of silver paint on there just to get that right. I don't want to powder coat them because all of the paint that I've got on the inside between the plate and the wishbone will obviously get stripped off if it goes in the powder coating oven. So I've gone for painting them silver instead, and I think they'll come out okay. The little arms on the top there, they obviously don't go there. I've just stuck them in there so there's somewhere for them to dry. But they get bolted on to the end of the wishbone, and a bush goes on the end of that. Right, that's cool. So we'll get the other side done when they're dried, and then they'll be ready for assembly. Right, the rear diff. So what we've got here is basically a Evo diff, which will go in the back, and that replaces the air locker that the Prisma comes with. So that's an LSD unit. Got quite lucky that. That's an eBay bargain. But basically what I've got to do now is just get that cleaned off. I've just had a bit of degreaser on it. We'll clean her all off, and she's going to get painted up with a bit of silver on there, so that should be pretty cool. Okay, so here's one for you. This is the front hub carrier, and the bearing has been pressed down so far into it. It's still got a little bit further to go though, and obviously what I used originally was a piece of wood on there, a piece of oak. So what I've done is I've taken the old bearing and I've just ground the edge of that off, so you can just see there where the just taking a bit of material off. And the reason I've done that for now is I can use that as a press, and it won't get stuck in, obviously, because it's the same size as the bearing that's been pressed in there. So once we press that in there, she's just a little bit loose. I should be able to just take that off there, and then the bearing will be in the correct depth. Well, there's the bearing in, and I've also put the spring retain around there, so that can't come out. And if you had a look at a previous video, this hole at the back here was where I had trouble getting the old retainer spring out, and we had to machine it in there just so we could get behind it to flick it out. So that's in there. I've just put a bit of grease around that, and the next thing to do is to take the new hub, and then basically that's going to get pressed into the bearing, and then we'll be away. Okay, take a look at this. We've got the hub back on the carrier, and I've just fitted the front strut as well, the coil-over, so we're liking that a lot basically. That's a good point to finish. So thanks for watching Otto's Garage. I'll get another episode out to you. Hope you're all enjoying Lockdown 3. Thanks for all the subscribers. That's brilliant. I think we nearly hit 350 now. We'll keep on going. We'll keep bringing the vids to you. Stay safe. Thanks for watching Otto's Garage.
Bye bye!